On Thursday, the Los Angeles Dodgers faced an unlikely opponent, ICE. The team's official X account claimed that DHS agents tried to access Dodger Stadium, but they were denied entry. There's only one problem with this story. ICE denies that there were any agents there. So here to weigh in on the controversy is Blaze Media's national correspondent, Julio Rosas. So Julio, I look at this story and I'm like, man, the Dodgers, they're no stranger to politics. This comes up quite often. When you're in Los Angeles, these things are going to happen. But unpack this latest fiasco for us.
Well, what happened was that it was Customs and Border Protection, and specifically Border Patrol, and of course people were saying, well, how could you tell? Well, you could clearly see in the photos and videos from that staging area where you have on their vest that says Border Patrol and police. So that's problem number one. But problem number two is just that Los Angeles in particular, but the country as a whole is right now, they are just hypersensitive and hypervigilant. So there was a case with the San Bernardino County Sheriff's office or department having to put out a statement saying that their unmarked units, which police departments and sheriff's offices across the country, they use unmarked vehicles as well for various reasons, and they had to say that their deputies were accused of being ICE when obviously that wasn't the case. And so the problem is that this has been stoked for a very long time, and Democrats and the media have been very irresponsible in their reporting on operations, so that when there's any hint of any sort of a perceived real or not immigration enforcement operation, people right now are primed to just overreact. And so in response to this ICE, supposed ICE sighting, people were protesting and blocking traffic ahead of the Dodgers game that day. So it just shows how crazy people have become over this when the whole reason why we're in this mess in the first place, primarily, is that we had an open border for 4 years and the administration is trying to get a handle of this very massive problem that they won on through promising mass deportations.
Yeah, it's. I mean, do you think we're going to see? It is a sign that perhaps this isn't over. We're going to see more and more of this throughout the summer. You think the energy is still there? People are still so raw over this.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's why for this past weekend I started in Seattle, and then I was in Los Angeles, and then I just came back from Portland, Oregon. And so this is that the initial outburst has kind of died down, but again, this ICE sighting, supposed sighting when it was Border Patrol, it shows that this is going to be kind of the norm from now on, and it is going to make things harder. It is going to make things difficult because the reason why Border Patrol was initially at that parking lot is because they had arrested some individuals and they were waiting on transportation. They couldn't do it at the original location because there were people there, so they used this other parking lot. But then people showed up there, so they had to leave. So they're trying their best. The bystanders and the agitators are trying their best to interfere and interrupt these operations. And that's why, for example, in Portland, they're targeting the ICE building there, which has been targeted multiple times in the past in that city as well for different reasons. So I think that especially now that we're entering summer full time, for the time being, this is going to be kind of the norm. And then even let's say when winter sets in and most of the country is cold, Los Angeles doesn't get that cold in the winter compared to the rest of the nation. So I think people are establishing their own community watch patrols and counter surveillance for immigration officials. And so I think this is going to be kind of the norm in terms of certain people's reaction for the foreseeable future, as long as the Trump administration is still in office.
All right, so let's stay with Portland. I used to live there. I know how crazy everything can get there. You wrote a piece for theblaze.com talking about the ICE facility, how it's under constant siege. So take us through what you've seen from Antifa and what they're doing in that city.
Well, they're mobilizing. They have been waiting for an opportunity to do this again, because the last time I was actually at that particular ICE facility was back in January 20th, 2021, when Biden became president, and they wanted to show that it didn't matter if it was Republican or Democrat. We want the American empire. quote unquote, to fall. And so I'm very familiar with that area because I've been there a number of times. But yeah, basically what they're doing is they trespass on the property. They're blocking the driveway, which is to the compound, and so they don't let the vehicles leave, which forces it seems to be a combination of Customs and Border Protection's BORTAC units, which is kind of their elite special forces type unit, along with the Federal Protective Service, which is kind of the police force for federal property and federal buildings. It forces those guys to come out, clear everybody out so that vehicles can come and go. And so that's been happening basically all this past week. And there hasn't been a lot of media attention on it just because it is dangerous. It's hard to cover Antifa movements like that just because they're very concerned about either media that they don't like us, or supposed undercover police amongst their crowd. So it's kind of like a cat and mouse game to try to not get caught. And at worst they'll just force you out of the area, or I'm sorry, at best they'll force you out of the area. But as we've seen with some other journalists, like in Seattle, they've been attacked physically, in some cases very seriously. And that's just kind of how just insane the Pacific Northwest is. I always like to say that I only go to Portland for work, and that's certainly true today, because at least with Los Angeles and kind of that area, there's still certain things to appreciate about it. But I cannot say the same thing about Portland. I absolutely despise having to go there. But I'm also happy to go there at the same time because I'm more than happy to cover the riots that tend to happen there.
It is unbelievable to me that, here we are 5 years later, and we're still dealing with this in America. These groups that we somehow can't get off the streets. It's unbelievable, but it does keep you gainfully employed, and you do great work covering this stuff. We should mention, though, speaking of Los Angeles, that someone else was in Los Angeles just this week. JD Vance is there. Tell us a little bit about that. Amidst all this rising tension about ICE raids, JD Vance rolls into town.
Well, I think it sends a message. I mean, he obviously he's a Marine, and there are Marines there to, again, helping protect federal infrastructure there. But I think it's just to show that the administration is serious when they're doing something like this. And look, it is unfortunate that we're having to send the Marine Corps into a city. Although I guess you could say that with the riots there, it's kind of almost like a foreign occupied city. But it just sends the message that we're here to support you guys and to keep up the good work, and we're going to see this through. And so I think it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of weeks, just because immigration enforcement operations are still ongoing. I mean, I was with Border Patrol during an operation earlier this week, and they're still doing stuff, right? So this isn't going to end, and that's what I really want people to understand, is that whether you're in a big city like Los Angeles or you're in one of these small agricultural towns, there is going to be a reaction of some kind whenever this is going to take place. And so it can manifest itself in very big, chaotic ways, or maybe a little bit less disruptive. But people should be prepared for anything to happen, just because in 2020, and when I was covering the riots there, it wasn't just big cities; it was smaller-ish towns like Kenosha or Wauwatosa. Those places wouldn't immediately jump to mind, but it got pretty destructive. It got pretty violent there because people, can gather at any place in time. And so, because the issue of illegal immigration is so much larger than, let's say, BLM, any unrest can really take place anywhere. And so that's what I would have people keep at top of mind, just to be prepared for anything to happen, really.
The theme of this is all of the craziness on the West Coast, and that's why we all left for greener pastures. Julio Rosas, thanks so much.
Of course, thanks.